Crude oil plunging 24% yesterday in a single day. It was the worst single day since the Gulf War started, coming in the wake of Saudi Arabia's split with Russia. Joining us right now, fresh off a trip to Riyadh, is Helima Croft, RBC's head of global commodity strategy and Middle East and North Africa research. And Helima, the market's rebounding a bit today, but what's happening with this rift between Russia and Saudi Arabia, and should we anticipate that there would be any coming together anytime soon?
I mean, the Saudis have made it abundantly clear that unless Russia returns to the OPEC bargaining table, they are going to take production up to potentially new highs. They were out today indicating that they would take production to basically 12.3 million barrels a day. That would be a record high for Saudi Arabia. So this is a situation right now where it's really, I think, in Russia's court to see whether they will come back to the table. There were reports on the CNBC website today that the Russian oil minister will be meeting with the country's corporate leaders to see if the Russians can put something on the table. But that's where we stand right now. I think it's really a question of what will Russia do.
If Saudi Arabia goes ahead with this and Russia does not come up with some sort of a deal that they can put things back together, was yesterday's sell-off overdone?
Well, I think if the Saudis are intent on really ramping up production, I think we will be in a situation where oil potentially could fall to the 20s. I mean, there are individuals in Russia, most notably the head of the Russian oil company, Rosneft, who signaled that he would want to take its production up further as well. So we could be in a situation where Saudi ramps up production and the Russians raise production. So in that type of situation, when there is so much concern about demand, I mean, this would be a really negative impact on oil prices. Again, I think we'd be talking about oil in the 20s in such a scenario.
So yesterday was not an over sell-off. If that's the case, is today an over bounce back where you're already looking at oil up by better than 10%?
I think right now people are hoping that cooler heads will prevail. I think, though, if we do get clear signals that the Saudi statements are going to be matched by barrels, then I think the market will really start to be very concerned about having an oversupply situation while demand is this fragile. We have not had a situation before when we've been in a demand crash where the producers have put millions of additional barrels on the market. This would be an almost unprecedented situation.
How long could Saudi Arabia and Russia each carry out that strategy?
Well, this is a question about, how deep are their reserves? I mean, both countries particularly Saudi Arabia, saw their reserves fall after 2014. They will be under economic stress carrying this policy forward. Russians say they have more bandwidth to do so. They say they're not as dependent on oil as Saudi Arabia. They say they need a lower oil price to balance their budget. But this will be a test of both countries' economic strength. I do think, again, I think the Saudis are looking to try to get the Russians back to the table. This is not a 2014 situation. They are not looking to flood the market almost indefinitely to break shale. They're trying to get back to the table. But the Russians, on the other hand, there are signals, again, if you look at that CEO of Rosneft, Igor Sechin, that he is looking to take out U.S. shale production. He wants the U.S. shale producers to balance this market. So if we get into that type of situation where the Russians are essentially saying, we're going to target shale, we want shale to roll over first, this could be an extended downturn in 2020.
Helima, just a couple of hours ago, Saudi Aramco said that it's going to be increasing its oil output to 12.3 million barrels a day starting in April. Is that just a negotiating tactic?
I mean, when I was in the kingdom, I was really struck by they're grimly determined to see this through. There's no joy about this policy, but they indicated that they will be ramping up production potentially to their maximum levels. Again, we've never seen Saudi Arabia produce at these levels. The recent high was in 2018 when they produced just over 11 million barrels a day. If they did 12.3, that would be unprecedented in terms of Saudi production. And it would leave us with almost no spare capacity in terms of producer states. Saudi Arabia is the central banker of oil. Almost every country produces their maximum levels. Saudi Arabia is really the country that sits on the reserves in the market. So if Saudi Arabia were to push their production to that level, we'd be out of reserve.